love is the love for the infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, which is the God. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in pursuance of this love, all body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. Fourth, the only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. Fifth, the only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. The knowledge requires you to help all equally as circumstances demand without expectation of reward. When compelled to make part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each other, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, not even those who harm you. Sixth, the real control is the discipline of the senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. Seventh, the only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstances, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of the God. Jai Baba.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
Avtar
Thank
Meher
you very
Baba.
much. So let's pick up from where we left off. So how was the homework? Did everybody get to spend some time with their egos?
Lot of time.
Very good. Very good. How about the others?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
said
went
not
through.
by reading, but otherwise.
Okay, that's there all the time. Egos there all the time. Yes, indeed. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So I think there is this reference to Neti Neti in the in one of the prayers or one of the bhajans, uh, and there's also that reference in the text which we had read yesterday. So that's what I could get. So there is a reference to Neti Neti or not this, not that in the path of love. So that's what came to my mind. I went through some parts.
Very good. I think, again, I will request all of you to spend some time, even during the course of the week, to refresh on this because it is a pretty dense semantics as well conceptually. Maya and ego, as Kama says, are the two tough mountains to climb, right? I'm sure we all can relate to the difference in the first read to now, right? Obviously, we have a better grasp of some other concept, some other the framework, and we're able to make better sense today. But I'm sure that we have to master or we have to work on understanding this deeper. And this is the opportunity to talk and get it clarified as well. So I think that by the time we finish the third chapter, which will be next week, we should be really, at least academically speaking, put our egos to rest. Okay. So let's,
Karthik,
yeah.
I read through this, not read actually, but I went through the audio. And in fact, see, last Sunday we started this chapter ego, right? And we
Mhm.
read through that. And yesterday Sunil had put up a question about ego
Purpose.
arises, formation of ego, right? And then we went to the path of love. We discovered that real ego and false ego. Real ego is I self, and mind has impressions, which is a repository of all the impressions, which makes it false ego. So coming back to this chapter, when I was going through, I feel, I don't know whether I'm right or wrong, but this ego, when we have written in this chapter, it should be false ego.
Oh,
Because when
absolutely.
we go to path of love, we discovered this real ego and false ego. And here, when we
So,
come back to this, it's just a plain ego, which is also I mean, it's a little bit, I think, confusing. That should it be a false ego?
absolutely, but I'll let Kama throw more light on that. But basically, even at specific points, he was making that reference.
Because
So,
real ego
Kama,
is
why don't you bring out the
itself, which is
this?
unchanging.
Correct, Kama. If you're done
So
with
the
the
real ego with the capital R, and whilst before Kama comes in, so the real ego with the capital R is one which is never changing or which
Correct.
is constant, and the one with the small r is our self. So like the drop soul is a part of the ocean, and so I mean our egos keeps changing and transforming because it is shrouded with impressions. Is what my two
I don't
cents
know
on
if
this.
Kama is there, but
Yeah,
explain.
Jai Baba,
Jai Baba.
I can see if I understood your question right, we are trying to understand what is real ego and false ego.
Correct.
Let's try to be very careful of the semantics we use because, English being a very ambiguous language, based on the context, a particular word will mean in different contexts. The
Mhm.
same word will mean different things. Okay.
Right.
Now we have been conditioned to think about ego as the ego personality self. So if you want to really clinically understand ego personality self, it is the individual false I self that I am separate from you. Kama
Right.
is separate from Ashok, Ashok is separate from Karthik. That
Mhm.
is the false I ego. And then if you look at the opposite, which is the real I ego, this is the real I ego, which is called the divine ego. This
Right.
divine ego is not something that comes up. It is
Mm.
already latent within the soul. The divine love is latent within the drop soul. The real I self is already latent within the drop soul.
Right.
So again, going back to the top-down approach, I believe that this is what my insight is nowadays. Whenever there is a doubt in understanding this process, because we are looking at compartmentalized words, sanskaras, ego, I self, existence, they sometimes mean different things at different times, but sometimes they all mean the same thing, depending on the context. So,
Mhm.
what I would suggest is that if you go back again to the win, I think this is very important to understand that my current, I've got a new acronym which is called IOU, interpretation, observation, or understanding. My personal IOU, right? So, what I want to say is, today only I kind of, was dwelling on that, is that when you look at let's try to look at practical realities in our day-to-day life. If you use the analogy of our waking life and sleep life, so the sleep life, the sound sleep state can be looked at the Paratpar Parabrahma, where you are unconscious of your being. Right? When you're in sound sleep, you're unconscious of yourself. And if you look at the Paramatma state, you can look at it as our waking state, the 16 hours of our waking state. Because before the whim happens, there is no difference between Paramatma and Paratpar Parabrahma. Okay, they are equivalent. Actually, they are only different states of consciousness. That is why in God Speaks we have the 10 states of consciousness of God. So when you come from that point of view, when the whim happens, who am I? This who am I whim is the first sanskaric impression. Okay? That has to be very clear. This impression is like throwing a pebble in a pond, which is very still. There is no ripple. But as soon as the stone drops, there is the first concentric circle, then the ripple turns out, the cause and effect that happens. So you can look at the whole ripple effect as the whole evolutionary kingdoms that we go through because of impressions. And we know that from God Speaks, that impression of who am I has to be experienced. And to experience that, the soul consciousness. See, whenever the word soul comes, always use the word soul consciousness or the consciousness of the soul. That consciousness of the soul needs to take a form, which started with the God particle, quarks, protons, the whole mineral kingdom, plant kingdom. So now coming back to what is the realized self, the divine ego, the real ego. The real ego is already within that drop soul. Because the drop soul, infinite unconsciousness only happens after the whim. Okay, because before the whim, Paramatma is one. There is no difference Paramatma and Parabrahma. Because remember, Baba clearly said that if you read the first 3-4 pages of the 10 states of consciousness, the state 1 and state 2, that all these things, the whim, infinite consciousness, infinite unconsciousness, all of these are of the nothing. They are part of the illusion. That is number one, that has to be impressed in our own mind. They are not real. They are just apparent, because this is a divine dream which we are living in. Now, what happens is that drop soul in the infinite unconsciousness is latently the real I self, the divine ego. Okay. That divine ego, because of the whim, has this sanskaric impression of who am I, and that sanskaric impression of who am I plus the real ego becomes the false ego. Okay, that is how one can relate to it. The false ego starts from that time, from the first impression, because it's like, when you cover yourself with royal clothes and somebody else is covering with beggarly clothes, but if you put them naked, both of them are basically a human being. So in the same way, if you look at it, the real ego is the realized self, which we are in a treasure hunt. It is already latent within us. Like when you read The Lover and the Beloved, it's very clear that God is, it's like the director. Suppose you're a movie director, you say that I'm going to play all the roles. So imagine there are 20 different roles in the movie, and you as the director are taking those roles. Those roles become the drop souls, and those drop souls are taking different roles and functions. So this is an analogy of looking at what is the drop soul. So drop soul is part of the Paramatma, the oversoul. But after the whim, each one develops an individual limited ego, limited individuality. It's called LI, limited individuality. So what happens when we, sorry.
Actually, the question was that in this book discourses, we are saying plain ego, right? And when we go to Path of Love, it says real ego and false ego. So should, in the discourses, it should be mentioned false ego here. Like in this page, part 2, ego is a hindrance to spiritual emancipation. So is this a real ego or false ego?
No, false ego, of course. The real ego doesn't do anything. It's just an observer. Whenever the word ego comes by itself, it is the false I ego or the ego personality self. Sorry, I went in that track, but it's the false I. Whenever you come with the word small ego, it will always be the false I, the false ego, or the ego personality self. Because if it is the real ego, it will be mentioned as real ego. So that is the differentiation.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Thank you, Sama. Thanks for explanation. Yeah.
And again, I'm reiterating, every time you come across the word soul, look always as the consciousness of the soul or the soul's consciousness. Then the sentences will make much more sense. Yeah, Baba.
Java. So again, one small question, that is the real I or the real ego the soul?
Yes, you can see, unless you self-realize, we can't really know what it is. But for the purpose of this presentation and what we are discussing, yes, the soul, the individual soul is the real ego, the divine ego, the realized self, so many different terminologies.
And is it the same as subtle body?
No. Okay. Take the
Because we
human
have three
being.
bodies, gross, subtle, and mental.
No, there are 4 bodies. Let me tell you why. How do you define a human being? A human being is spirit and matter. We are spiritual beings in a material body. So for technical purposes, we say the human being is a spiritual body and a material body.
Right.
The spiritual body is your real ego, the real I self, the soul. The material body consists of the gross body, subtle body, and mental body. Why is the material body there? The material body is the medium through which the soul's consciousness can discover itself after dissolving sanskaras. Why does the consciousness, see, consciousness needs the human form, the material body, to self-actualize or self-realize. The material body is dependent on the self because without the spiritual body or self, the material body doesn't exist. Of course, there is a paradox out here, conundrum. But this is again the divine theme. Remember that God is playing dice. Einstein said God is not playing dice. God is playing dice. In the material world, he's not playing dice because there are laws. Whereas in the spiritual aspect, basically, God, this whole divine dream, the script is structured like this. I ask myself, why do we have male and female? Because there's so many challenges, especially when you become a human being with lust, greed, and anger, and especially with the opposite sex. Now, this is how the world is designed. So similarly, the material body has a purpose. It is the medium through which the soul's consciousness will self-actualize.
So you were saying that we have 4 bodies, right? Which is the 4th? One, gross, subtle, mental.
I'm saying, see, I'm just making it the spiritual body, the realized self. See, there is only one self, okay? There is none of these bodies. These are just apparent imagination of the divine dream. Like, we are all taking certain roles. So basically the self, the realized self, which is the drop soul consciousness to experience evolution, reincarnation, involution, to discover its own realized self, needs the medium of the gross body, subtle body, and mental body. The gross body deals with the 5 physical sensations, T square S cube, touch, taste, sound, smell, sight. The subtle body leads with the subtle energy force, feelings, emotions, desires. And the mental body deals with the intellect, the thoughts, it's a repository of the sanskaras, and so on and so forth. So all these 3 are just mediums. That is why we are going from gross sanskaras to subtle sanskaras to mental sanskaras to zero sanskaras. We actually start with zero sanskaras before the whim, which is the drop soul, real I self. The whim creates the sanskaric impression, and immediately we have the false I ego.
So is the impressions of the mind is the mental body?
Okay. Mind is the mental body, and mind is the repository of all the sanskaric impression. All the impressions that you have gathered through evolution and reincarnation are stored in the mind, the mental body.
So what is the subtle body?
Subtle body has to do with the energy, the force. So when the impression needs to be expressed, first it comes in the form of desire. Okay? That desire is a subtle desire, feeling, an emotion. And then if your sanskaric impression is very powerful, then you will get tempted to experience it. That is why it is called spending sanskaras. Okay. So suppose I want to smoke a cigarette. I know I'm like, I'm a chain smoker. I want to stop smoking. I've decided not to smoke. So I get this urge because there is a sanskaric impression in the conscious mind or subconscious mind, which influences me, the desire to smoke. Now I have this wisdom that, hey, you know what? I should not be smoking. It's not good for me. So if it is a weak impression, I will use my power of choice or free will to control myself or become aware rather than control and say that, you know what, this is the right valuation. This is the word valuation comes. Mm-hmm. So the right valuation would be, you know what, I don't want to smoke and create another impression. I want. But if the urge is so much that the impression is very powerful, you get tempted. That is why human beings have the power of choice. Either you can make the choice or not make the choice. Right. So that is when the gross body is used to experience, what is called as thoughts, words, and deeds. Thoughts is of the mental body, words of the subtle body, and deeds of the gross body.
Okay. Thanks for the clarification, Kamal. I understood what you explained. That's all questions I had. So I think that has clarified me a lot. Thank you so much.
Good questions. Thanks, Rajesh and Kama. Anybody else, based on your review of ego, the first two chapters, please?
What I feel is this is a practical way of understanding ego because we are all in the false ego. So Baba is explaining all the aspects of false ego to remove that. And then we'll come to the real ego later. That's why all this, what
Yeah.
we are reading now, is all referring to the false ego.
Okay. Thank you, Mamaji.
Yeah, so let's continue. So we started the chapter, the second part yesterday, second part of ego. So I'll just read the subtitles we already covered. Ego is a hindrance to spiritual emancipation. Ego feeds upon exclusive feelings, right? And jealousy strengthens ego. And then there's a very beautiful way jealousy is described here. And slimming down of ego through love, the only way to slim down the ego is through love. And again, that's explained very well. Ego is made of desires. And then you have the roots of ego in subconscious mind. So that's where we stopped. So let's, did we stop? No, we went further. Ego heterogeneous in constitution. And then, yes, the famous explicit ego and implicit ego, and then subconscious and conscious mind, right? So I hope we can take it from there. Any thoughts of any of these subtitles, or can we continue from the next one? Continue. Okay. So anyway, just for everybody's benefit, I will share the audio file of the first read, that is the first chapter on ego, and what we do today. And I guess we'll use the week. I request all of you to use the week and try to, as I said, do a ego workshop and close things with the third part on Saturday.
Go with the ego.
Yeah, let's go. Okay, so let me start reading from physical page 169. Third para, subtitle is Intensified Conflict Ends in Attaining Poise and Harmony. Jai Baba, the action of intelligent consciousness on the components of the explicit ego is important, but in itself, it is not sufficient for the desired results. The components of the implicit ego of the subconscious mind have to be brought to the surface of consciousness somehow and become parts of the explicit ego and then be submitted to the action of intelligent consciousness. If this is to be achieved, there has to be a weakening of the explicit ego in such manner as to allow the emergence into consciousness of those desires and tendencies that could not hitherto find admittance into the arena of consciousness. This release of inhibited tendencies naturally brings about additional confusion and conflict in the explicit ego. Therefore, the disappearance of the ego is often accompanied by intensified conflicts in the arena of the conscious mind rather than by any comfortable easing of them. However, at the end of the uncompromising and acute struggle lies the state of true poise and unassailable harmony that comes after the melting away of the entire iceberg of the ego. Ego lives through opposites of experience. The digging out of the buried roots of the ego from the deeper layers of the subconscious and bringing them to the light of consciousness is one important part of the process of wiping out of the ego. The other important part consists of the intelligent handling of desires after they gain entrance to the arena of consciousness. The process of dealing with the components of explicit consciousness is by no means clear and simple, for the explicit ego has a tendency to live through any one of the opposites of experience. If it is ousted from one opposite by the intensive operation of intelligent consciousness, it has a tendency to move to the other extreme and live through it. Through repeated alternation between the opposites of experience, the ego eludes the attack of intelligent consciousness and seeks to perpetuate itself.
Can anyone give an example for this explanation?
The
The ego jumping from this end to that end.
Good question.
What is the question again, Jai Baba?
So ego lives through opposites of experience. So if you're not able to deal with one, if it is ousted, I'll read here. If it is ousted from one opposite by the intensive operation of intelligent consciousness, it has a tendency to move to the other extreme and live through it. So the ego lives through the opposite of experience. And Doc's question is, what is an example of that? How do you survive through opposites?
A simple example is, I think we have discussed this before, selfishness. So selfishness is a kind of a bad karma, like the negative side. You are tying yourself with iron chains. Then after going through the selfishness process, because remember that latently the soul always knows it wants to realize itself, number one. Number two is that we also know that, as mathematically speaking, every soul will get liberation by 84 lakh lives. So number three is basically, there are people, let's take the smoking aspect or alcoholic aspect or drugs aspect. People experiment with drugs, alcohol, all this stuff. There are some people who do it, then leave it, okay, and they move on because they've experienced it. They say, okay, I'm done. Like, then you have other people who get addicted, take a long time, and then there are people who go from darkness to darkness, as we know. So coming back to the example, so after some time, you realize that selfishness is not working because everybody knows that I'm selfish. Nobody loves me. I need to do the opposite. I have to become selfless. So you start doing selfless things, and suddenly everybody says like, wow, this guy's changed now, like, so your ego gets boosted. But you're again still in that dualistic, opposites of duality. You're now entangled yourself with golden chains because you're making impressions. You're making good impression. That time you're making bad impressions, bad karma. Now you're making good impressions. That doesn't mean that it's going to balance or neutralize each other because they are mutually exclusive events, as in probability, Each action is mutually exclusive. That is why Baba said, you just can't do good deeds and balance and get liberation. Ultimately, only the perfect master can give you liberation, right? So selfishness and selflessness are in the opposites of duality. To go beyond that, you need to become selfless or selfness. So what you have to do out here is that every ego personality self will have to experience this opposites of duality. Without that, we can't get liberated. Only thing is, I might do it for 10 cycles, some might do it for 20, some might do it for 200 cycles. That is the only difference. So the ego, another thing is, suddenly, like, I'm an atheist, and suddenly I know people who are atheists, and then suddenly they discovered God because they went through some medical problem and suddenly discovered that they are alive and there is a God. So suddenly they started looking at God. So that is an opposite of duality. And there's also another thing where, one can develop a spiritual ego. Like for myself, I can say, wow, like, I know all this and, blah, blah, blah. I can develop, yes, the mind will make you feel like, I've got a spiritual ego, or like a Musk or Bezos will say, I've got a material ego. I'm the biggest billionaire in the world, So I think that is what it means, that the ego will play roles, just like playing a political party. You go from Congress to BJP to Trinamool to BJP, you will keep doing, that is how the mind works. Because the mind, ego, doesn't want to get liberated. That is the nature of the mind. That is how this whole computer game is designed. So if you look at this whole divine theme as a computer game, then things will become much more easier. Like, okay, Baba.
Thank you.
Yeah, good example. Thank you very much. But I think the example that you took from selfishness to selflessness is probably a gradual change. But is there something that happens more, in days and hours, or is it more the protracted experience of opposites through the ego? Because it could be the example that you cited could be a protracted change, right? Or even the example of atheism to believing in divinity.
It depends on which attribute you're talking about, which part of the ego you're talking about. The ABCDF: anger, aversion, backbiting, craving, duality. You meet a perfect master, you're backbiting people, suddenly you have his blessing. You suddenly become a good person. So things can, Baba said, with a click of his finger, he can actually make things happen, like, by the divine will. See, that is where divine grace comes. We don't even know when the divine grace comes. You only look at the aftermath of it. And sometimes you will suddenly realize, my God, I was thinking of this like this, but actually it is something else, So I think it all depends on the context,
Kama, can you repeat ABCDE? Anger, backbiting?
There were 2 A's.
Come on. Then we will keep reading the dictionary. Like, in my book, it's anger, aversion, backbiting, craving, duality, expectations, fear, greed, hatred, hypocrisy, jealousy, and so on. Like, I mean, so it's synonymous and antonyms. So lust, greed, and anger are just examples. The 7 deadly sins, you can call it the 80-20 rule. 80% of people are dealing with the 7 deadly sins, which is infatuation, lust, greed, anger, jealousy, fear, and worry. Baba gave the 5. We know the 3 basic one is lust, greed, and anger, based on the gross, subtle, and mental body. Baba said convert lust into love, greed into generosity, anger into compassion and tolerance. Then he came up with infatuation, jealousy in the chapter on love. I used to I was trying to figure out why did he use that, but there is a thing, because I've gone through that experience of getting infatuated with a with a woman, when I was just graduate from college, because I had done everything. I said, I'm not fallen in love, so let me fall in love, So I become infatuated with someone. So then it became like, that's another story. But so infatuation is something that happens, in day-to-day life with objects of desire. It can be with material things, it can be with people. And then fear and worry, and there itself in Love chapter, Baba has said, worry is the biggest obstacle to start the spiritual journey, to even imbibe those spiritual attributes like no backbiting, look at the good points of others, supreme tolerance and happiness of others, all that stuff. So this is a process and a game. It's like a snakes and ladders. You go up, you come down. You go up and you come down. And suddenly you're on the 100th block, and you're done.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kama.
Okay. Next subtitle: Ego is Hydra-headed. The ego is Hydra-headed and expresses itself in numberless ways. It lives upon any type of ignorance. Pride is the specific feeling through which egoism manifests. A person can be proud of the most unimportant and silly things. Instances are known, for example, of people developing their nails to an abnormal length and preserving them, despite much inconvenience to themselves, for no other reason than to assert separateness from others. The ego must magnify its attainments in grotesque ways if it is to live in them. Direct assertion of the ego through self-display in society is very common. But if such direct assertion is prohibited by the rules of conduct, the ego has a tendency to seek the same result through the slander of others. To portray others as evil is to glorify oneself by suggesting a comparison the ego would willingly develop, though it often restrains itself from doing so. Tricks of ego.
Yes,
The ego is activated by the principle of self-perpetuation and has a tendency to live and grow by and all means not close to it. If the ego faces curtailment in one direction, it seeks compensating expansion in another. If it is overpowered by a flood of spiritual notions and actions, it even tends to fasten upon this very force, which was originally brought into play for the ousting of the ego. If a person attempts to cultivate humility in order to relieve himself of the monstrous weight of the ego and succeeds in doing so, the ego can, with surprising alacrity, transfer itself to this attribute of humility. It feeds itself through repeated assertions like, I am spiritual. Just as in the primary stages, it achieved the same task by assertions like, I am not interested in spirituality. Thus arises what might be called a spiritual ego, or an ego that feels its separateness through the attainment of things considered to be good and highly spiritual. From the truly spiritual point of view, this type of ego is as binding as the primary and crude ego, which makes no such pretensions. Guerrilla warfare. In fact, in the more advanced stages of the path, the ego does not seek to maintain itself through open methods, but takes shelter in those very things that are pursued for the slimming down of the ego. These tactics of the ego are very much like guerrilla warfare and are the most difficult to counteract. The ousting of the ego from consciousness is necessarily an intricate process and cannot be achieved by exercising a constantly uniform approach. Since the nature of the ego is very complicated, an equally complicated treatment is needed to get rid of it. As the ego has almost infinite possibilities for making its existence secure and creating self-delusion, the aspirant finds itself impossible to cope with the endless cropping up of fresh forms of the ego. He can hope to deal successfully with the deceptive tricks of the ego only through the help and grace of a perfect master. Master as a last resort. In most cases, it is only when the aspirant is driven to realize the futility of all his efforts that he approaches a master. By himself, he can make no headway toward the goal that he dimly sights and seeks. The stubborn persistence of the ego exasperates him, and in this clear perception of helplessness, he surrenders to the master as his last and only resort. The self-surrender amounts to an open admission that the aspirant now has given up all hope of tackling the problems of the ego by himself, and that he relies solely upon the master. It is like saying, I am unable to end the wretched existence of this ego. I therefore look to you to intervene and slay it. This step, however, turns out to be more fruitful than all other measures that might have been tried for the slimming down and subsequent annihilation of the ego. When, through the grace of the master, the ignorance that constitutes the ego is dispelled, there is the dawn of truth, which is the goal of all creation. Okay, we have the master key in the last para, right?
I remember the video. I remember the video which I saw where a monkey is avoiding I think, one ferocious animal, and it is jumping from branch to branch in the tree, and this cannot climb up the tree, and so the monkey comes down sometimes and then jumps to another branch and teases the wild animal. So ego is like that. It is going to be sticking around with us in all different ways. So how do we get rid of it is the ultimate question. How do we tackle this? Hey, Baba.
Yes, Mamaji, it is the monkey mind.
Jai Baba, I have a personal example I can tell you. When Baba came to me in 97 and I read discourses and all the other stuff, and I was going through the sea, there was intellectual conviction or faith, let's call it, faith. There was this belief that, yes, Baba is the person, is the guru, the master that I've been seeking. But I went through this transition from 97 to 2009 because the 100% conviction had not happened. That again, Baba has clearly said that conviction is also the grace of the perfect master. So between 97 to 2009, I kind of thought, or even before that, because I was a spiritual shopper, I had read a lot of different operating systems. And what happened was that I thought, since I've not found my guru or mentor, I will figure out my own process. I will take the best of different operating systems and make my own operating system, and I will try to liberate myself. That is how I started. And then I went through this process and I realized that I was facing a lot of challenges. Yes, I had that intelligence, so I'd say the intellect, but there was no action behind it. I could not see the practical aspects. There was no transmutation. So slowly my ego got hurt, because that ego was playing there. You know what? I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I can figure it out for myself. I don't need nobody's help. No babas, no gurus. And then as time went on, I realized I was still in square A. Nothing was happening. And then when I was reading these chapters, because I used to keep reading discourses, and when I came across this, then I thought to myself, maybe here, this is what is Baba trying to tell me. And slowly I said, now that I tried, see, it's good that I tried on my own and I failed. So that gave me the conviction, okay, so let me try this. And then I started surrendering to Baba, not 100%, we all know that. And then 2009, when the certain things happened, which gave me that 100% conviction, this is it. This is the end of the journey for me. This is the beginning of a new journey. I found my master. So again, the challenges have happened. The ego again starts playing. So I think this is a very good example where it says that, especially people who are very egoistic, they say, I can figure it out, But in the end, you realize that you need the guidance of a perfect master. So why wait? Why wait till the end? When it happens right in the beginning and you have this conviction, go for it. So that's a very good example. Jai Baba.
Yeah, I think that and the more important factor of the grace of the master and master's help is what can solve this complicated problem in the easiest manner. But then there's a lot of conviction and faith. Conviction, of course, is grace of the master itself. But I think the key lies in this last para. So that's what I'm saying. Good. Any
Yes,
other questions before we go to part 3?
But you have to definitely, like you said, work on this chapter about the explicit ego and implicit ego, and, especially page number 169. It's a psychologist's dream or psychiatrist's dream when they need to solve people's personal problems, physical and mental, especially mental problems. Because we understand this 168, 169, 170, these 3 pages, it makes a big difference. You can understand why people behave the way they are or why we behave the way they are. Because the subconscious mind is a dangerous battlefield. People think, I'm talking again of my own personal.
We have to keep doing it, I think. Jai Baba.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I use the word beware of being aware. Beware of being self-aware. That is why Baba says, remember me all the time, because Baba is the manifestation of the formless self. Okay. The Saguna Sakar form of Baba, Krishna, all the avatars is a manifestation of the formless, Nirguna Nirakar, which is the self, OILS, our innermost loving self. So that is why now I understand one way of interpreting. Baba says, try to remember me all the time. It is almost like when you're watching a movie, you are unconscious of the white screen. But remember, before the movie started, you see the white screen, the blank white screen. That is an analogy for the self. This is from Ramana Maharishi. When the movie starts, you are totally engrossed in the movie. When the movie ends, depending on whether it's a comedy, thriller, romance, you take that emotion with you. But the important fact is that the movie is dependent on the white screen. Without the white screen, the movie can't go on. Whereas the white screen doesn't need the movie. That is the self. And the second thing is, in the movie, if there's a flood or a fire, it doesn't affect the white screen because it's all illusion. This is a beautiful analogy that Ramana Maharishi gave. How do you focus on yourself? See, all the masters tell you, see, in the end, after going through all this Baba literature and everything, you have to abide in yourself. So this is my new trick I'm working on. I call it abidance in the self, abiding in the self. Self-abidance is my new trick now. Okay. So the self is Baba in human form, and the self is self, the formless aspect, that the real self, the realized self is our own innermost self, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Kama, thank you so much. I probably will listen to this whole explanation once again in the recording to understand even better. So you were saying something about the mental and physical challenges which Baba lovers still face. Do you throw some more light on this?
Okay, I'll give you an example. Me and Vidya, another Baba lover, we had gone on a talk to Marathwada region, to different Baba centers. And interestingly, in different Baba centers, there were particular kind of physical or mental suffering that people, Baba lovers, were going through. I probably think it was Yavatmal. And there, the Baba lovers were having the kind of suffering they were facing was their near and dear ones were dying either through accident, cancer, and so on and so forth. Just like that, a 12th standard student, has a motorcycle accident or somebody has a disease. And they were asking like, hey, we are Baba lovers. We are trying our best to follow and obey Baba's postulates. And why is this recurring? It was not like one time or two time. It was recurring. Like, it was becoming like a chain reaction, and everybody was in this community were facing the same kind of pattern, And so they started questioning, is Baba real? Is he not real? What are we doing? Which is normal human tendency, But my understanding, what I see is personally on my own experience in life, I've gone through challenges during my upbringing as well as when I was working, where people harm you without you doing anything. Suddenly something comes and you have done a good thing, but actually it rebounds on you. Sometimes suffering comes in the form of an individual who you don't know. You try to help and suddenly they become your enemy and they start doing stuff at you. And when you start looking at that, you start questioning your spiritual journey, and that is the turning point. This is where you have to look at the LOSs. First, you love Baba. More than love is obedience. More than obedience is surrender, which means Baba said that if you come to me, don't come to me for your material fulfillment. Number two is don't even come for me for love. Okay, I'm going to throw suffering at you. Like Baba said in one of those things, which I think I probably sent it at the thing. He said, suffering is a benediction. And I have many lovers, but I have some very special lovers whom I give special prasad. And the special prasad is suffering. Now, when you look at suffering, there is physical suffering and mental suffering. And discourses, Baba said that mental suffering is much of a higher. Somebody has to mute, please. The important thing is that mental suffering is much, much of a higher degree than physical suffering, number one. Number two is physical suffering is for dissolving samskaras. Number three is suffering is a way to go beyond this identification with the body. Because when you talk about suffering, it is not the soul that is suffering. It is this physical body which is going through physical pain, or the mental body which is going through mental suffering. And mental suffering is really tough, So Baba says surrender. And what happens once you surrender to the suffering and say, you know what? There is a reason behind it. I'm not a chain smoker, but I have a lung disease. Where did it happen? Okay, maybe some reincarnation karma, something to do with your past life. Because a lot of physiological diseases are actually sanskaric, basically, So you can look at it from that point of view, that physical and mental suffering within Baba lovers is a test by Baba to see how well you can handle it. And one last thing Baba said, I will just give you enough suffering that you can handle it. I will never give you more than that. But once you overcome that suffering, the next suffering will be of a higher degree. Let me put it this way. So it doesn't stop. But you have to remember, this is all part of the game, apparent suffering, because this is a way to dissolve the ego. You have to take suffering in a positive way. It is a way to dissolve the ego and the sanskaric impressions to know ourselves, the treasure hunt. That is why I call it a computer game. Jai Baba.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Computer game, the levels get more complicated as you finish lower levels and the suffering keeps coming back. Take the suffering as a way of working off your sanskaras and working off your ego. Great. Let's do it, guys. And I like the...
Karthik, imagine that tennis game, French Open, with Djokovic coming after 2 sets. I mean, that is, that kind of suffering, that's a different kind of, I wouldn't call it suffering. It's a game, but still you have to play hard. And spiritual game is like that, basically, Djokovic, winning the last 3 sets and winning the French Open,
Yeah.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Only the paranoid make it. So we'll not say survive. I like that too. So let's keep our watch. Huh?
Only the paranoid succeeds, is that?
Yeah, only they make it.
Make it. Okay.
Till you
Only
win the Nobel
paranoid make
Prize,
it.
right? Till you win the PhD of liberation, you have not passed your thesis or dissertation. Okay, we are all doing a spiritual PhD of either liberation, nirvana, or ordinary moksha, or nirvikalpa samadhi or sahaja samadhi. So the interesting thing is, I look at getting the Nobel Prize as being the Sadguru. Otherwise, most people get their PhD and do something else. That's liberation. So we have the greatest guide, Meher Baba. And now it's up to us how we finish our thesis. So you have to be paranoid. Even if it's on the 6th plane, you see God everywhere, you see visions, doesn't matter. It's all illusion, frankly. People say, oh, Baba comes in my mind. Great. Baba is helping you to be on the journey, but don't relax. Don't follow the Peters principle. The Peters principle says that every man reaches his level of inefficiency. So once you reach the peak, you have to switch to a different profession or to a different paradigm. So Peters principle is a very interesting management term. I love it. Jai Baba.
In fact, it's a good verbalization of your personality, Kama. And of course, it's tempered down over the last one and a half year. But basically, you are always paranoid. You're always at it. The game is on, and you're always moving.
Yes, I'm driven. Yes, I'm driven. There's nothing else. I have nothing else to do. No distractions, and Baba has given me this freedom. So I should make use of this. And hopefully, that's it.
Yeah.
Making all of us paranoid also. Thank you.
Indeed.
I want you to be paranoid and passionate.
Yes.
And intense.
Great inspiration. Great inspiration.
Indeed. Indeed. Great. So let's start with part 3. Physical page is 172. Nature of the ego and its termination. Part 3. The forms of the ego and their dissolution. Ego lives through idea of mind. The ego subsists upon mundane possessions like power, fame, wealth, ability, attainments, and accomplishments. It creates and recognizes the time in order to feel what is distinctively mine. However, in spite of all the worldly things that it claims as mine, it constantly feels empty and incomplete. To make up for this deep restlessness in its own being, the ego seeks to fortify itself through further acquisitions. It brings the array of its entire varied possessions into relief by comparison with others who might be inferior in any one of the items stamped as mine. And it often uses these possessions for wanton and uncalled for self display, even to the disadvantage of others. The ego is dissatisfied in spite of its mundane possessions. But instead of cultivating detachment from them, it seeks to derive satisfaction from a more intense sense of possession in contradistinction to others. The ego, as an affirmation of separateness, lives through the idea of mind. Forms of ego. The ego wants to feel separate and unique, and it seeks self-expression either in the role of someone who is decidedly better than others or in the role of someone who is decidedly inferior. As long as there is ego, there is an implicit background of duality. And as long as there is the background of duality, the mental operations of comparison and contrast cannot be effectively stilled for long. Therefore, even when a person seems to feel a sense of equality with another, this feeling is not securely established. It marks a point of transition between the two attitudes of the ego rather than permanent freedom from the distinction between I and the you. Idea of equality. This pseudo sense of equality, where it exists, may be stated in the formula, I am not in any way inferior or superior to the other. This will at once be seen to be a negative assertion of the ego. The balance between the I and the you is constantly disturbed by the predominance of a superiority or inferiority complex. The idea of equality arises to restore this lost balance. The negative assertion of the ego in the form of equality is, however, utterly different from the sense of unity that is characteristic of the life of spiritual freedom. Although the sense of equality is made the basis of many social and political ideals, the real conditions of rich cooperative life are fulfilled only when the bare idea of equality is replaced by the realization of the unity of all life. Two complexes. The feelings of superiority and inferiority are reactions to each other, and the artificially induced feeling of equality might be regarded as a reaction to both. In all these three modes, the ego succeeds in asserting its separateness. The superiority complex and the inferiority complex, for the most part, remain disconnected from each other. They both seek separate and alternate expression through suitable objects, as when a person dominates those whom he regards as his inferiors and submits to those whom he looks upon as his superiors. But such alternative expression through contrasting behavior only accentuates these opposite complexes instead of leading to their dissolution. Superiority complex. The superiority complex is stirred when a person meets someone who is in some way remarkably inferior in mundane possessions. In spite of its many possessions, the ego is constantly confronted with the spectacle of its intrinsic emptiness. Therefore, it clings to the comforting delusion of its worthwhileness by demonstrating the greatness of its possession. This contrast is not confined to theoretical comparison, but often exhibits itself in an actual clash with others. Thus, aggressiveness is a natural outcome of the need to compensate for the poverty of the ego life. Inferiority complex. Inferiority complex is stirred when a person meets someone who is in some way remarkably superior in respect to mundane possessions. But his submissiveness to the other is rooted either in fear or selfishness. It can never be wholehearted or spontaneous because there is a lurking jealousy of and even hatred for the other for possessing something he would rather have for himself. All forced and outward submission is purely the effect of an inferiority complex and can only enhance the ego in one of its worst forms. The ego attributes its sense of emptiness to the apparently inferior possessions it can claim as mine, rather than to its deep-rooted viciousness in seeking fulfillment through possessions. Awareness of its inferiority in possessions becomes only a further stimulus for making desperate efforts to add to its possessions through such means as are available to it. Thus, while perpetuating the inward poverty of the soul, the inferiority complex, like the superiority complex, constitutes an agent for selfishness and social chaos and for the accumulation of that type of ignorance which characterizes the ego.
Jai Baba, I think this is a very, very important discussion to have about complexes, excuse me, superiority, inferiority, and equality complex. And Baba talks about that the bare idea of equality is replaced by the realization of the unity of all life. I think we discussed this probably when we were reading the earlier chapters somewhere, if you remember, guys.
Yes, I'm trying to recollect. I thought you will jump up with the example, but then there he thought about how, I think, was it in Selfless Service, where he said the idea of trying to talk about and help others is actually, I don't know.
Yeah, a kind of a simply like, you have a lot of money. I'm doing charitable activities. I'm putting my name, Vinod Gupta School of Management, and I know he's got a lot of scandals in the US. I'll talk about, I think all of us consciously, subconsciously have experienced these three different complexes. So if you don't mind, I will tell you about myself. Basically, okay, I I went to a public school. I was brought up in a chawl, but I'm from Kumbakonam and all that. Brought up in Bombay. So when I went to IIT, I saw all these guys like from preps, good schools, speaking very good English, and I felt that, oh my God, I started feeling inferior. And apart from that, I had my own phobias that I was carrying from childhood, stage fear, talking to a woman, and fear, nervous, all those things. And then, of course, the atmosphere was so good that it's my best friends are still from university, and so I had one of the most beautiful times there. I learned a lot about different things, and that's where I got into the spiritual aspect, from Karma Kanda to Adhyatma Kanda, because I was brought up in a very orthodox family. So I started exploring all that. Then I came to Bombay and worked for 3 years. I was looking for a mentor to, I'm an engineer, but I was marketing. And what do I know about marketing? Nothing, zero. And my bosses were all time pass, so I never performed well the way I wanted to. And then I went to the US, I did my MBA. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So, but I was fortunate to work under a professor of finance. I had an assistantship. So I got interested in finance. So I thought, okay, all roads lead to Wall Street. So I came to New York. And then after a couple of challenges, I was fortunate to get a opportunity to work as an equity analyst. And I worked for a small boutique firm. And I worked always with small boutique firms to be a big fish in a small pond so that I could come to India every year for a month. And I used to go for this IPO filings, initial public offering, like, all that was the time when the pre-internet, internet, post-internet boom. I was in the right place at the right time in New York City. It was all Baba's grace, because I should not have been even working on Wall Street, because you only the top Ivy League school guys, MBA guys go to Wall Street. So Baba got me an opportunity there, But then once I got in, I was on a rocket ship. Like an example is like breakfast in Geneva, lunch in Paris, and dinner in Amsterdam, kind of work schedule. And the one thing that I used to feel inferior was when I used to meet these guys from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley and Merrill Lynch. They were making more money than I was doing. They were doing better IPOs. And I used to feel like, oh my God, like, Mira, and I'm not making enough bonuses. So all kinds of complexes used to happen. And on the other hand, in IIT, what used to happen was we used to have this postgraduate students, master students who came to do MTech. They had gone to REC, they had gone to the local colleges after GATE, they had come to do MTech in IIT. And some of them, they had a postgraduate hostel and an undergraduate hostel. So some of these guys used to be in the post undergraduate hostel, and they were used to be so paranoid, their inferiority complex would just show off, like, nobody is doing anything to them, okay? And I could see they were so shy, they were scared to even talk to us, like we were younger to them, and they were called Buddhas, like, as if like. So I'm saying like how these complexes play, and we have been conditioned by society, by our education system, by our parents to have these complexes. To be very frank with you, at least for my sake, 80% of parents don't know how to bring up their children. And thanks to Baba now, we know that we have been talked about equality, like in America, everybody, affirmative action, blacks, Hispanics, everybody is equal. But behind, everybody is, backbiting, there is definitely why? Because they don't have the spiritual knowledge. I didn't know about the unity of all life except when I read quantum mechanics, then like. But thanks to Baba, here with this chapter, I could then understand what I went through, like the superiority, inferiority, equality complexes, and so on. So I think that, my suggestion to the group is, Karthik, apart from the ego aspect, I think each one of us should do a presentation, 5 to 10 presentation of some real life examples that they have experienced or they have observed. It would be a nice kind of thing. Jai Baba.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead, Mama.
This different shades of complexes, everyone experiences. Say everyone goes through the superiority, inferiority, or equality states. It is always quite common as we go through the different, say, life circumstances. But how do we manage to maintain our status, our poise, our equanimity? That is what is required. Because there is no state where you are out of ego. Ego is always there. It is the driving force. It is needed also. But we will be shifting from some circumstances where we feel superior, next we feel inferior, like that. But to hold to a sort of a level or equanimity, that is what is the biggest struggle we have to pass through and then win over. I feel that is the learning lesson out of all these things. Jai Baba.
Anybody else?
Yep.
Mamaji,
go ahead, Ashok. Go ahead.
yeah, just one second. I think this tagline, respond, don't react, is probably one of the the practical tools to sort of not feel inferior or superior, and that could be one of the tools to my mind. To respond to
Jai
what
Baba, sorry, Ashok, when you finish, just say Jai Baba. Okay, please, thanks.
Jai Baba.
You finished, Ashok?
Yeah, Jai Baba. Yeah. Sorry, my
Okay.
sound is-
Okay, so what I'm trying to say is that to support what Doc Mama was saying, I'm giving my own personal solution that I'm working with myself. You know, here I'm in Kunur, I meet new people. There is one particular person, you know, basically, you know, he's a kind of a worker, you know, does miscellaneous jobs because the owners from whom I rent, you know, have a soft corner for him, and he seems to think he was like Man Friday, and he thought that you know he is kind of the apparent you know manner of the house. Like you know he thinks he owns the house. He comes anytime he feels like he's got some tea gardens where he plucks. So I told my owner that like you know I don't want this guy coming here. You know I like my privacy. So I was trying to deal with this. You know it's a long story, but the point is there are many examples where we meet individuals and what happens is we lose our spiritual belief system, like what Doc Mama said is correct. Is it possible for us to maintain equanimity, you know, equipoise, you know, Baba says, cheerfulness and contentment, enthusiasm and equipoise, you know, that's his word, under all circumstances, you know, under any circumstance. Now, we all are reading all these beautiful Baba words, but can be implemented in practical life. So the trick I'm using is basically I look at myself as an actor. As Ashok said, are you responding or reacting? If I'm an intelligent actor, am I not? An intelligent actor does not react, but responds positively by not spending sanskaras, by unwinding sanskaras, which means you use your conscious intelligent action to resolve the situation in an intelligent way where you don't create new sanskaras, which is called spending sanskaras, not reacting. So the garb I have to perform is that I am an actor in a movie. And all the people that you meet are fellow actors with bit roles and major roles. You meet once in a while during the movie shooting. You're not going to fall in love with every actor in the movie, correct? And some actors bother you. They are a pain in the ass, you know. And this we experience all over the world, you know, whenever we wake up and we go out. I mean, we have people in our own family, you know, that bothers us. So what I decided was if I look at this from a top-down approach as I said, a computer game, or I'm like what I call myself a player actor. It's a ball game of love because Baba said, you know, this whole creation has come out of love, you know, the divine game of love. So I thought, okay, how do I use that and customize it to my own response to the ups and downs of life? You know, that's what Baba wants us to do, is to be able to be practice his postulates, you know, not perfectly, but as much as we can, you know. So the what I do is I look at it like a ball game with rules. So I have to look at him as an actor because behind him is the self. He's also a drop soul, real I self like me. There is no difference, except that his function is to be a pain in the ass. So now I have to respond to that. So this is the challenge basically. So I try to pretend myself to be an actor in a movie with fellow actors, or I try to be a ball game player, you know, whether I'm playing basketball or football or baseball, because you can create penalties, you know that when you're playing basketball, you can hit a guy, or if you're like Wayne Gretzky, you know, the great ice hockey player, you know, if somebody pushed him, he would never harm him. You know, he would go and put 3-4 goals in front of him directly to show, like, you know, don't, you know, physically abuse me, like, you know. So I think this is just an example of, you know, following up with what Doc Mama said. Jai Baba.
Any others?
Hey, Karthik, you are a man with a lot of experience. Why don't you say something? There's no skeletons in the closet, right?
Only skeletons in the closet. There's hardly anything else.
Hey, by the way, I was going to let you know privately, but I think I can say it in the forum itself. That part that I talked about my personal life, about my wife, if you can delete that, okay, when you from the recording, if it's possible, okay. So I don't want it to be like a public or the public forum, you know. So
All right.
if that's possible, please. Okay, I just thought about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Will do. Yeah. So let's continue. Surrender different from inferiority complex. When a person comes into contact with a perfect master and recognizes him as having the state of egoless perfection, he voluntarily surrenders himself to the master. The disciple perceives the ego to be a source of perpetual ignorance, restlessness, and conflict. And he also recognizes his own inability to terminate it. But this self surrender should be carefully distinguished from the inferiority complex because it is accompanied by awareness that the master is the ideal and, as such, has a basic unity with the disciple. Such self surrender is in no way an expression of loss of confidence. On the contrary, it is an expression of confidence in the final overcoming of all obstacles through the help of the master. The appreciation of the divinity of the master is the manner in which the higher self of the disciple expresses its sense of dignity. Intervention of master. In order to
this self-surrender, can we take it as 2 minuses make a plus? Even though
go
it is
on
not
with that analogy. Go on with that analogy. I didn't get
no,
it.
even if it is not, say, inferiority complex, it is sort of an inferiority activity for others to look at. So you leave everything to somebody else. So that is minus. And you are not sure of what is happening, but you are very sure that at the end, everything will be okay. So somehow this came up into my mind. I don't know whether I am able to express it properly or not. Jai Baba.
Interesting, but I think I just love this line, right? These few lines here, right? Such self surrender is no way an expression of the loss of confidence. On the contrary, it's an expression of confidence, the overcoming of all obstacles through the help of the master. So, and the other line here, which is perceives that there's a mention of unity. Where is that? When a person comes into, he voluntarily also recognizes, but the self-surrender should be. Yeah, master is the ideal and as such has a basic unity with the disciple. So I like those two lines here. Anyway, yeah, I heard some of the voice.
Yeah, so Karthik, basically there is an analogy that you're going in a train and suddenly you come into a tunnel and you see a ray of light or a fuel, some bit of light at the end of the tunnel. So I think it's just that you should not have inferiority complex, but hope that yes, you're on the journey.
Yeah, so this is I think we have to read this and be convinced that it's surrender to a perfect master is different from inferiority complex. That's a given, right? So it may come with the recognition that you are incomplete or incapable, but it is not to be compared or understood or construed as inferiority complex. That's what I'm getting from this. Right? Okay. Intervention of master. Yes, Ajay. Anything else?
Yeah, in the previous paragraph that we were reading on a normal social life that we have where we are also with within the family and even outside, the people who are not Baba lovers or not kind of spiritually inclined, and then you tend to kind of express or even say that okay, I leave it to Baba to do this, that silence is there. So you get to face from friends and this thing, some kind of for every little thing he is just depending on God or his master, are not doing things of his own. So this is one thing we generally face, you know, uh, within the family and even outside. Yeah. So that's what was coming to my mind actually. So
Interesting. Good point.
Yes, yes. This
yeah,
is really happens in families
All of
where
yes,
isolated souls are in identity with Baba.
yeah,
This conflict will always be there, and this is a learning for us also. What is the
yeah,
force behind us which makes us surrender to Baba in
yes,
spite of the comments and then criticism
yes,
that we may have to
yes,
face the surroundings.
yes. It just tests our faith in Baba actually,
Yes, yes,
because people will always try to shake it.
yes.
So it's challenging actually. That's it. I would say. Yeah.
Indeed. So, on that note, I just want to finish that intervention of master, and then we can go to the bhajan. Right, we're almost out of time. Right. So, intervention of master is the subtitle. In order to bring about a rapid dissolution of these two chief forms of the ego, the master may deliberately stir both of these complexes in alternation. If the disciple is on the point of losing heart and giving up the search, he might arouse in him deep self confidence. If he is on the point of becoming egotistic, he might break through this new barrier by creating situations in which the disciple has to accept and recognize his own incapacity or futility. Thus, the master wields his influence over the disciple to expedite the stages that the melting ego passes through before its final disappearance. Right? I think again we heard a lot of personal experiences which were very rich, and we also understood the concept of how Baba uses suffering. So this is again kind of echoing that, right? With that, we'll stop here. And you're ready, Sanjay? You're ready for a bhajan?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Sure, great. So over to you.
Okay. अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय। ऐसा कोई महान नहीं जिंदगी में काम, ऐसा कोई महान नहीं जिंदगी में काम, लेना मेहर का नाम रे, मीठा मेहर का नाम, लेना मेहर का नाम रे, मीठा मेहर का नाम। यह श्वास आते जाते ही कहना मेहर मेहर, यह श्वास आते जाते ही कहना मेहर मेहर, हर काम आप से हो कहते मेहर मेहर, कहते मेहर मेहर, पाओ मेहर का धाम रे, लेते मेहर का नाम, पाओ मेहर का धाम रे, लेते मेहर का नाम। ऐसा कोई महान नहीं जिंदगी में काम, लेना मेहर का नाम रे, मीठा मेहर का नाम। ये नाम तुमको देगा आनंद की लहर, सुख को बढ़ाए पल पल, कहते मेहर मेहर, कहते मेहर मेहर। लगता न कोई दाम रे, कहना मेहर का नाम। लगता न कोई दाम रे, कहना मेहर का नाम। ऐसा कोई महान नहीं जिंदगी में काम, कहना मेहर का नाम रे, मीठा मेहर का नाम। झगड़े फसाद स्वार्थ के कारण पनपते हैं, झगड़े फसाद स्वार्थ के कारण पनपते हैं। इंसान को इंसान का दुश्मन बनाते हैं, दुश्मन बनाते हैं। कर लो सभी से प्यार रे, मेहर की तुमको आन। कर लो सभी से प्यार रे, मेहर की तुमको आन। ऐसा कोई महान नहीं जिंदगी में काम, लेना मेहर का नाम रे, मीठा मेहर का नाम। लेना मेहर का नाम रे, मीठा मेहर का नाम। अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय।
बाबा
जय बाबा, ब्यूटीफुल।
Beautiful,
जय
Bhajan.
बाबा,
Jai Baba.
Beautiful.
जय
Beautiful,
बाबा,
Bhajan.
जय बाबा, जय बाबा। थैंक यू, जय बाबा।
Thank you. मेहर का
Happy
नाम।
Father's Day to everybody. Today seems like Happy Father's Day.
Yes,
Jai Baba.
Yes, thank
Happy
you.
Father's
जय
Day.
बाबा।
Happy Father's
Yeah.
Day to
Happy
everyone.
Father's Day.
Yeah, happy Father's Day to
Baba.
everyone.
It was today or
Jai
yesterday?
Baba.
Happy Father.
It's today.
So
I
it's
suppose.
Fathers are
Or
only
is it
celebrated once a year.
Yes. Happy Father's Day to everybody. Yes.
Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
जय बाबा, जय बाबा।
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
But
Jai Baba.
the